Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another Short War video, and today we have breaking news coming out of Russia that Ukraine has attacked even more huge and major Russian oil refineries inside of Russian territory, and they have knocked off a total of 12% of Russia's total oil refining capabilities in just the last 2 days alone. And we're also learning of news that the head of the Russian Lukoil company, which is in charge of one of those refining facilities that were knocked offline, has suddenly died under mysterious circumstances, and we don't have any further details than that. But let's go ahead and jump right into our first story of the day, which goes to Nexta on Twitter. And it says Ukrainian drone attacks over the past 2 days have paralyzed 3 Russian refineries in total, which account for 12% of the refining capacity in Russia, and the largest oil refineries have halted operations or reduced output, and this is being reported by Bloomberg. And we can assume here that the other oil refineries are halting their operations because they're trying to basically harden their facilities to try to ward off these drone attacks in the future. I'm not exactly sure what they can do to ward these attacks off, but I'm sure Russia is trying to brainstorm some quote-unquote ingenious ways to do so, but I really have some doubts about that. And I think we know why this is happening all of a sudden. It's to basically cause chaos inside of Russia, so that way the Freedom of Russia Legion, who's currently invading in the Belgorod region, can basically get some an advantage over the Russian troops left in the area, because now Russia is being absolutely plunged into chaos because of these attacks, and the troops might be distracted elsewhere. So that's a likely reason for it. But with that, let's move into our next post here, and we actually have a video of that oil refinery on fire, and this is from Visegrad 24. And just to be very specific here, this is Rosneft's Ryazan facility, which refines 17 million tons of oil per year, and Ukrainian drones just took it out a few hours ago, which brought that total up to about 12% of Russia's capacity being knocked offline. So let's take a look at this video and see what we have. And there you can see there was a drone going in on one of the main towers of the facility itself right there. And it looks like it was not the only drone to hit. It looks like it was several drones that hit across multiple areas of the refinery to take that plant offline. But as you can see, quite an extensive attack indeed, and Ukraine is not playing around when it comes to knocking these facilities offline, and I'm sure there is plenty more to come after this. But with that, let's go ahead and move on to our next post here, and this is that story about the death of a top manager of Russian company Lukoil, which is one of Russia's largest oil companies, and this is a post from Nexta. It says, on March 13th, the company reported the death of Lukoil Vice President Vitaly Robertus, who died at the age of 53 years old, and the company did not disclose the cause of death of the vice president, and Robertus became the 4th top Lukoil executive to die in just 2 years. And he is not the only guy who has died under very suspicious circumstances, and also he was only 53 years old. And the fact that so many of these Lukoil executives are dying at this age, that can't be a coincidence. These guys are probably getting knocked off by Russia. I'm not sure if it's in direct relation to the attacks on the oil facilities themselves, or maybe they simply angered Putin in the past and he's decided to take them out now. But to me, this reeks of assassination, and it obviously has a lot of bad signs to it. So it looks like Putin is once again back to his purging methods, even in these private companies inside of Russia. But with that story out of the way, we're moving on to our next one here, which goes to the Kyiv Post, and we see that the Freedom of Russia Legion, which they're calling pro-Kyiv militias, are warning of strikes on Russian border cities, and they're warning Russians everywhere to leave cities immediately because they will be coming to a town near you. And it says this announcement comes 1 day after the groups claim to have seized the Tutkino village in Russia's Kursk region. And we do know for a fact that regardless of what the Russians are saying for propaganda, these pro-Kyiv militias have made their way through the Belgorod area, and they have seized some territory within it. They have not been put down by the Russian FSB, and I really doubt they will be in the next few days. This may go on for a week or a couple of weeks. If it's even successful, they might even make their way closer to Moscow. But then again, this is a smaller force, so we'll have to wait and see. It's not as large as Wagner, so the odds of them being able to plow their way to Moscow that quick, like Wagner did, is probably not very high, but I'm holding out hope that they are well equipped and they will make their way closer to Moscow. But with that, we're moving on to yet our next post here, and this one goes to the Euromaidan Press. It says, Putin says a military escalation is possible on the Finnish border, and in a defiant response to Finland and Sweden joining NATO, citing it as the country's meaningless move, Putin threatened to deploy troops and systems of destruction along the Finnish border. And this is something here that Finland has been worried about for quite some time, and it sounds like Putin Putin is moving his way toward actually pulling this off. The only thing that might hamper Putin, though, in his move here to move troops to that border there is that the troops are already deployed and they're fighting inside of Ukraine, and they're using all of their manpower to fight the invasion in Ukraine. And also, most of their equipment is deployed there as well. So I'm not sure where they're going to get this equipment from to deploy on the Finnish border. But they're able to find it. They're basically pulling it out of thin air at this point because they really don't have it available to use. But with that, we're moving on to our next article here, which goes to Nexta on Twitter as well. And it says, Sweden will ask NATO to strengthen the defense of the Gotland island in the Baltic Sea. And this was reported by the Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson to the Financial Times. And it is a question of increasing the military contingent on the island and possible deployment of submarines there, and strengthening the defense of Gotland will be one of the first issues on the agenda of discussions with Sweden's NATO partners. And Gotland is the largest island in the Baltic Sea, 330 kilometers from Kaliningrad, and the island is of great strategic importance, and its location makes it easy to control both air and sea traffic in the southern Baltic Sea. So we're seeing here that not only Finland, but also Sweden is starting to get concerned about their defensive measures. So they're beginning to ask NATO to strengthen these up, and I think that is a wise move indeed. But sadly, that's all we know about it at the moment, so there's not much else to report. But with that, we're moving on to our next post here, which also goes to Nexta. And it says here, Russia categorically rejects the possibility of returning the occupied Zaporizhia nuclear power plant to Ukraine or transferring the plant under international control. And we see here that Moscow considers any demand for the return as an attempt to encroach on Russia's sovereignty and territorial integrity, said the Russian Foreign Ministry, which is obviously a load of crap. It says here the statement was in response to a resolution by the International Atomic Energy Agency last week. So this is also not the first time the board has called for the immediate withdrawal of Russian troops and return of the nuclear power plant to Ukraine itself. And we all know the real reason that Russia won't return this power plant to Ukrainian control or to international control either. That's because they want to use this plant as basically a hostage situation. They're holding this very dangerous facility hostage for the remote possibility and the also veiled threat that they may try to blow it up one day and cause a nuclear disaster inside of Ukraine. That is the reason I think they're doing it, but of course, if you disagree with that, feel free to leave a comment down below to let us know what you really think about the situation. But with that, we're moving on to our next article here, which goes to Nexta as well, who says Macron will make an urgent address to the French nation tomorrow on the war in Ukraine. And that actually makes his address going to happen today. I'm not sure what time it's going to be happening, but whenever it does happen, it sounds like something is quite urgent that he's going to announce here. I'm not exactly sure what it is. They give a little bit of detail right here in the bottom of the post. But then again, it's pretty vague even at that, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what Macron is coming out so urgently to address. But with that, we're moving on to our last post of the day, and this is a bit of a funny one. This one is from Anton Gerashenko, and it shows the quality of the new Russian Lada Vesta. So we have Anton Gerashenko here asking everyone, what do you think of the review, and would you buy this car? So let's take a look at this review and see what we have here. What is the best Russia has to offer for their auto industry? So let's take a look. He said, oh, it's a nice car. I don't care if there's no stereo. I'll install it myself. There are no speakers, fine, but I'll do that myself. I'll buy a cheap one, so why overpay for them, he says. He also says seat heating is also not necessary because I will not drive it in the winter. He says, no airbags, I don't care. Look how cool it is. Oh man, it doesn't open. Mirror? What's the point of having a mirror? It doesn't have mirrors. I mean, golly. He's also looking up here at the really cheap manufacturing quality of pretty much everything in the car. He says, I have it here and that's it. I don't think there's a light. Whatever, what's the point? There's no light in the glove box either. He says, there's nothing to see at night anyway. And who wants to see a Lada lit up at night? Nobody does. He also says, so what if there's no third head restraint? No parking sensors? No review camera? So what? A lot of small. It's easy to see everything, he says. And my goodness, that is some serious coping right there with a absolutely subpar Russian quality product indeed. And that is a brand new car that you can buy from Lada inside of Russia with basically nothing included in it, which is absolutely insane. And to answer Anton's question, what do I think of the review and would I buy the car? Absolutely not. That is absolutely absurd, and this is the best Russians have in their country because they got cut off by sanctions by virtually everyone else, and this is basically one of the few cars they can get unless they want to get a Chinese car also, which is probably not much better quality than that. But with that, that's actually our last piece of news for the day. And I hope you found this video informative, and if you have, press that like button and also subscribe as well because we put out these updates pretty much every day. There's news available to cover. And also, if you want to help support our operation financially, you can do so on our Patreon page and sign up over there, and the link is in the description below to sign up on our Patreon. And once again, thank you all for watching. We'll see you tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on our nightly war news stream, and bye-bye for now.